Film is a medium that transports. All I have to do is pop myself in front of the TV to watch a movie, and I can just enjoy it, whatever place the film takes me to.
Movies have always been an escape. It gives you a whole new world to be in.
I have a rekindled love affair with movies.
Welcome everyone to this episode of Real to Real Talk. I am Sergio Barrera, and it's time once again to talk movies. And I love talking movies with my two favorite people. So welcome to the show as always, Susan Chisholm and Paul Britton, the other Real to Real Talkers team. We are going to spend today talking about some of our favorite actors. It's a frequent topic here on the show. And we have an opportunity to once again share actors that we admire and talk a little bit about their filmographies and reasons that we love them. So I'm excited to once again have this conversation because we've had some fun conversations about this in the past. Hopefully, as we talk through these, we'll inspire folks to watch their films and maybe even share with us their thoughts on who their favorite actors are. So welcome. I'm ready to do this. How about y'all?
Heck yeah, let's go.
Let's do this thing.
Absolutely. As we get started, as I look across the people that I could potentially talk about, I don't know about y'all, but I'll pick someone, and then within a day or two, I'll be watching another movie, and I'll be like, oh, why didn't I pick so-and-so? So I wonder, before we even start, are there any actors that happens where you're like, oh, shoot, I should have chosen them? Because you're interested in the work or talking about the work that they do, or is that just me?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
For me, and to be fair, like you guys have a lot more the movie, movie watching experience, and I mean, so I sit there and I go, who am I gonna choose? And I finally choose somebody, and then I'm like, okay, next time I see the next movie that I see, I'm like, dang it. And then next time it comes around, I'm like, oh, who am I going to choose? I don't know any movies, so, so I'm there.
Yeah. I will say, normally that's the case. But in this particular week, the male actor that I picked for a very, very specific reason. I didn't regret it at all. At no point was it was one of the rare instances where I was just like, this is what I want to do. And this is why. And I'm just so happy that I did it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, mine is one I've been looking forward to talk about, my male actor. And for me, though, it's just a reminder of just what a deep well of talent we have that we can go back to. I mean, it doesn't even have to be actors of the modern era. It can go so far back as however we choose to. My choice to get us started, I'm going to start with male actor, and we'll do the cycle like we do, myself, Susan, and then Paul, and then we'll circle back a second time. I'm going to start with my male actor, and it's because I've looked forward for quite some time now to talking about Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. for me is an actor that I grew up with. When I think about some of the movies that he did early on, these were movies that were being released in my late high school, early college days. And so I've had a familiarity with him for quite a while. And as I did my research for his work, I didn't realize that his first acting credit actually occurred in 1970, the year I was born. He appeared as a puppy in a film that was directed by his father, Robert Downey Sr. And that was one of the biggest moments that for me, as I did my research, was such an intriguing thing, because I didn't realize, I was gonna say, well, he's been doing most of his major acting since the mid 80s, early 90s. And then of course, there's a credit for 1970, right smack dab in the middle of his work. And so he's been in the business for a while, and has done such a wide breadth of work that could be talked about. But of course, I don't have all that time. So what I want to do is look at his work prior to his work in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because while I will touch on that briefly, this is a guy who has been able to do some great work amidst some very well chronicled personal struggles. There have been many interviews over the years that I've watched of his, and many things that I've just been really fascinated with him as a person because of the things that he's overcome in regards to addiction and so forth. And this trouble that he, found himself in happened during the very early portions of his career. When you look at his body of work, though, you really get a sense of someone who was able to do great work while dealing with these things. And then when he got help, got sober, he then began to produce this sort of new wave of material that really has marked him as just an actor to be reckoned with. I mean, he really produces good work in any condition. My first actual exposure to Robert Downey Jr. was in a movie called True Believer. He starred alongside James Woods as a young, aspiring lawyer, wanting to do what's right and wanting to make a difference, right? And he gets involved in helping James Wood, who is the main star of the film, who is defending a guy who's already in prison. He's defending him against being sentenced to death for a prison killing that occurred, that he committed. And the conversation pieces that happen between Robert Downey Jr. and James Woods within this film really give us a glimpse of how that unique Robert Downey Jr. style of fast-paced dialogue and incredulity that no one does incredulous better than Robert Downey Jr. No one does sarcasm better than Robert Downey Jr. in this guy's opinion. And I trace it back to True Believer as one of the first times I ever saw him do that. Many people, and Paul, I'll ask you this just because you and I have experienced him during some of his earlier phases. What would you say, though, is the film that most people will associate him with from his early career? What would you say was his landmark role?
Well, I mean, look, I remember him as the best friend. So Weird Science and Back to School, like that.
Yeah.
That I remember seeing him. That's vividly. I remember him. Both of those films, things that I saw, at the time, and just being like, oh yeah, this guy's great. And
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't necessarily know his name at the time, but he was easily recognizable. But the movie that like a lot of people would say, Johnny Be Good was a big one for him, but for me.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, Chances Are,
Okay.
which came out the same year as True Believer, but Chances Are is just, I mean, God, if you haven't seen that, it's so good, and it's a little creepy and weird, but still so good. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Well, and it's funny because as you talk about those films, I think to myself, oh yeah, because I mean, Johnny Be Good was filmed in my hometown.
Cool.
But the movie that I know comes to mind for me is Less Than Zero. Less
that's
Than
another
Zero
one too,
was a
sure.
role that really put him on the map. And again, this was in a time in which he had begun his struggle. And the reason I bring up his struggle is not so much to put any sort of, it's amazing to me to know his background and to see what he's done as he's overcome all of these things.
Right.
This is a man who is not only an actor, or that's not his main talent or his only talent. One of my favorite Robert Downey Jr. things, and I promise I'll talk about his movies in just a moment. There is a video, if you find it on the internet, I promise you will be so taken by it, in which he joins Sting, formerly of the Police, on stage to sing one of his tunes. And every time I see it, literally every time I come across it, I post it on my social media, because Robert Downey Jr., he's so smooth. And as he walks up there, I remember the very first time I saw the video, I thought to myself, okay, I don't know that does he sing? And then he literally belted out the first line, and I was like, he sings. And so it just increased my feeling about him as this Renaissance man that really has a lot of wells of talent, and he's gifted us with his ability as an actor. And so as we continue to look at his filmography, there are movies that really stood out to me over time that are hallmarks of his career. As his career progressed, I remember watching him in films like Soap Dish, along with Sally Field, Charlie or Chaplin, in which you portray Charlie Chaplin, which was just to use a term the kids are using today, it's a banger of a role. It was just a fantastic look at his talent. I mean, he embodied Charlie Chaplin in such great detail that it was hard to not see his talent. He appears in movies that aren't necessarily the most popular ones that people think of, like U.S. Marshals with Tommy Lee Jones. The sequel to. Now I can't think of the name. Why do I do this?
The Fugitive.
Thank you, The Fugitive, exactly. And so he appears in his own work. He appears in others' work, and the movies that for me are the ones that I appreciate the most are really the ones where he seems to be taking a step out and risking. Many will find his role in Tropic Thunder as controversial. But if you listen to him talk about why he did what he did and his commitment to that role, in which he played an actor that was so method that he went and actually had himself underwent pigment alteration, it's a comedy. And in days like today, people can go back and watch that film and question whether did it age well or not. But if you listen to him talk about why he did it and what his motives were, you find a man who has chosen the roles that he's chosen because of the impacts he knows that they'll make. His work in the MCU is, just if you want to see his arc as an actor in at least this third phase of his career, what I call his third phase, which was everything MCU, you see him progress from this sarcastic, egotistical guy all the way to end up being the one of the main heroes of this story arc. And it's that hero's journey that embodies not just the story of the movies, but also a lot of what he's done in the last few years in his personal life, in the way in which he pours himself into his charitable work, his other talents. And it's a career that for me, he's a favorite actor of mine, not just because of his films, but because of the person that he's become. Within the midst of all of his work in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he did a movie with Robert Duvall called The Judge, and that film for me not only was a break from seeing him constantly in Avengers movies and such, that it was a nice reminder of the true depth of Robert Downey Jr.'s acting talent. It's a wonderful story of a guy who has had struggles with his dad, and his father finds himself in a position where he needs his son, and the battle between Duvall and Downey Jr., if we look at them just as actors, the work that they do on screen in this film is so compelling that I actually watched it twice over the span of about 4 days, because I really so appreciated Robert Downey Jr.'s ability to play in the subtle, to go to the melodramatic, to just move between all of these different levels. Because let's face it, if you know Robert Duvall, then you know that you're playing against a palette that can move and can really draw out. Duvall is so he's never going to be accused of playing on the extremes when it comes to his acting. He's sort of the same guy most of the time that you see him, but there's a depth of intensity to his work. And Duvall is able to Robert Downey Jr. is able to work against Duvall's style and not come off as if he's trying to show off. It melds so well that movie has become one of my absolute favorites. And so I encourage people, if your experience with Robert Downey Jr. is mostly Tony Stark, you need to go to his filmography. You need to start with movies like The Judge, and then go all the way back through the years and watch what he's done since he was a young new actor all the way to now, and there's very few roles that you won't that would have you go, I don't know, maybe that was a misstep. He brings a lot of gravity to a lot of what he does, and so I'm just happy to be able to talk to him, talk about him, and encourage people to watch his work, because for myself, I've always found him entertaining, and I'll be the first to admit that when Avengers Endgame was over, I had that little tear in my eye of like, oh, he's done it. He's completed the story arc, and here we are. So Robert Downey Jr. Is my entry to the male actor for our category today. So
I want to throw out two more really quick. Richard
Please.
III
Yes.
and Home for the Holidays,
Yep.
both from his second phase,
mm-hmm.
early second phase. That's all. Richard III.
Yeah, and
Home
if
for the
you,
Holidays.
I'll tell you what, if you ever can catch interviews he's done for Home for the Holidays, he's very, very honest about the condition he was in when he was filming that movie. Jodie Foster gave him a lot of room, and again, how he manages it, I'll never know, but I'm glad he did. So yeah, thank you, Paul, for that. I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to go to our friend Susan now for our next installation of favorite actors. Who do we have, Susan?
So I'm actually gonna switch over and do my female actor.
Sure.
So I'm here talking about Reese Witherspoon, who I love and is adorable. So when you see her in most of her roles, almost all of her roles, in fact, she's this like chipper, self-confident, goody two shoes kind of, I guess. And that's kind of like her trademark. Like you see almost in all of her roles that's what she does. I mean, there are definitely some roles where it's a little bit darker. But Sergio, you got your kind of dose of her in Legally Blonde. I think that was, you liked it, you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Somewhat. But I think and in part that has a lot to do with her and her talent. I mean, and if you look into her as a person, that's how she is in real life. Like she's not acting that, chipper, happy, like the way that I can think of it is that like the woman in the neighborhood that has like the perfect yard and always hosts barbecues and at Halloween she gives the full-size candy bars, so she's like head of the PTA at school.
Yeah.
So one of the first roles that I saw her in was probably actually Legally Blonde. And because of that, like the way that she pulled that off, I mean, obviously we've talked about the plot points and stuff like that, when you talked about it in your segment when you assigned it to you.
Mm.
But if you think about like, so she's actually been an actress since 1990. Her first role was in Man in the Moon when she was only 14 in that role. Mm-hmm. And you see a lot of these actors that start young or they start in their teenage years and they don't make it. The pressure's too much. Everything it consumes them.
Right.
And fundamentally they change. And for the most part, Reese Witherspoon has been able to really thrive. Like she found her niche and went in there and just went for it. So what's really neat, and I was finding out, like reading some of the other things, and like she's produced more movies than she's produced about a third of movies than she's acted in. So she's produced 27 movies. So and most of the time, that's the other thing you see is that when people are actors and they do the actor producer thing, they stop acting and they produce, or they stop producing and they act. Like they can't do both at the same time. And I'm looking at her filmography right now, and she's produced a lot of movies that she's also been in herself. So it's kind of a neat look into her. And it's one of those things where it's like, stop being perfect, okay? Like leave some talent for the rest of us.
Yeah.
And she's really great. And so, and again, you know, you think about the roles like Legally Blonde, and you think about, oh gosh, I just saw one. Well, anyway, that's what I'm gonna talk about later. But and she also lends voices. So she did Monsters versus Aliens. I don't know if you've seen that movie, Sergio. I'm pretty sure, Paul, you've seen it.
Yeah.
You know, she is the lead star.
Yeah,
I don't know how.
yeah.
I mean, she's the main character. She voices the main character of that show, and just like through her voice, you can see and hear, like you could see her face going like, you know, you see Reese Witherspoon, you see how, I mean, and she really conveys that. So looking back though, I remember, you know, Legally Blonde, and she was in a couple of different roles, and one of them that was extra like kind of dark and twisted was the movie Cruel Intentions.
Mm-hmm.
That was like huge because I think I had just turned 15 when that movie came out, and it was huge at school. People were talking about it, and it was, I mean, it's pretty dark and really twisted.
Yeah.
But I think that wasn't even like her breakout role was in Legally Blonde. Like if you think about her, you know her from Legally Blonde, and that's another thing that lends to her flexibility, I guess, is that she didn't stay there. I mean, and she's done serious roles. Like she played June Carter Cash in Walk the Line and did a fantastic job on that one. So, I mean, it's really neat to see where she came from and her durability, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And she's still acting and still producing. Right now she's doing like, you know, she's in a lot of like TV series right now, because I guess it's a little bit less intensive. And in reading about all of the kind of things, you know, with her family, she's got a lot of she's got three kids now. She's got, you know, family stuff, and that's important as well. So she, you know, usually at that time people kind of dip out of the spotlight or the limelight, I guess. And she's still right there being chipper as ever.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's my love for her and her work, I think, is that she pulls it off so well, and she does it with everything else she's doing. So that's my intro
I recently watched Walk the Line, and for the first time, well, not recently, it was last year, I think, and I was struck by her. It's just that charming nature that she has. She brings it to everything that I've ever seen her in. I can't say that I claim a lot of, you know, to know a lot of her filmography, but there is something to be said. Now, humorously enough, my only other comment on Reese Witherspoon will be I follow her on Twitter, and she's just as sweet as she comes off in her films. You
exactly.
know? It's
real. Like that's not, she's not acting. That's real.
Yeah. I was so taken by this is y'all's fault. Because I was so taken by Legally Blonde that whenever I'm impacted by someone, I'm like, I wonder what they're talking about, and so I began to follow her on Twitter. So,
Good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I want to call out two of her other early films that she's just absurdly amazing in, and plays two completely different characters too. Well, maybe anyway. Pleasantville and Election. Those are two movies that are just fantastic movies. Pleasantville, you know, a bigger movie, and just a great, you know, take on society. And Election, which is a classic. Have you seen Election, Sergio?
I have.
I haven't.
Okay, good. So, you know, a classic, a classic look at just high school politics, like literally, you know, high school politics, and with one of my all-time favorites, Matthew Broderick, and so good. It's a fantastic dark comedy. So I highly recommend Election.
I don't know if you'd agree, Paul, but Susan, if you enjoyed Cruel Intentions and if you enjoyed Legally Blonde, Election is this mix of both, and so highly recommend watch it this week. So
have either of y'all, I mean, I know that Paul, you probably have, because it's an animated film. Have you either seen Sing?
No, I haven't seen Sing. Sing came out by the time my son stopped making me go see everything animated. So I didn't see Sing.
I'm gonna put it out there and recommend. This is another animated film where she lends her voice to it. Does a fantastic job. Obviously, she's one of the. I wouldn't say it's because there's one main character and she's kind of a sub main character. It's really sweet. It's got a lot of good music. It is a really cute, really sweet movie. Y'all should check it out. Just saying.
Cool.
No promises. That one, sorry.
Careful, you'll get it assigned.
Sergio, that would require you to go see it before me. Yeah. So that's fine.
I am not above plotting to make you see certain things.
All right.
Very nice. Very nice.
Okay.
All right, Paul, what do you have for us?
I have I for my female actor, I picked Lupita Nyong'o, just a relative newcomer, and a ridiculously talented newcomer too, because right out of the gates, well, first of all, I'll give a little background. She was born in Mexico City, which I had no idea, and of Kenyan parents, and they were there for on like official government reasons, and so she speaks Spanish and English and a host of other languages, and her first main film right out of the gate was 12 Years a Slave, which Sergio, you've spoken on several times during our podcast and the impact that it had on you. And I mean, she won an Oscar. Just, let's get the formalities out of the way and establish Lupita Nyong'o as an amazing actress and give her an Oscar right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And well deserved. And like her filmography is just from that point on is just like a greatest hits of movies that you should see. And even the next movie, Nonstop, which I would imagine she probably filmed nonstop before 12 Years a Slave was in the can even. So a smaller role, a flight attendant, but still a super fun movie. And then she gets the role of Maz Kanata in the Star Wars movies. Mm-hmm. And the only thing disappointing there is that she plays a CGI character, but her voice work is ridiculous. I just, she's so good in that. I just want to watch her. Like that's, her voice work is outstanding, but I want to watch her. That's the frustration there. More voice work with Jungle Book, and then I haven't seen Queen of Katwe, but I have, of course, seen Black Panther, and like. Okay, so it's a superhero movie, but just a totally different role from other things that she's done in the past, and just fantastic. And then, but look, this is the reason why I picked her, because she was in 2019's Us, which was Jordan Peele's follow-up to Get Out, and I watched that movie. Since the quarantine. So I did not see it in 2019. And I'm telling you, like, Oscars, what the hell were you thinking? Like, and I get that, playing Judy Garland is important to people that vote for Oscars, but come on. I mean, she is so phenomenal in that movie. And that's what I want to talk about right now is Us, and just go see it. Don't walk, don't run. It's one of the best movies from 2019, and her performance in it, she plays two characters. I'm not going to spoil anything other than just to say that it's spellbinding what she does on the screen in Us, and you have to watch this movie. I am not a fan of horror genre, and Us is most assuredly a horror genre movie, but like a highbrow horror genre, and it is so good. Also stars from the Black Panther. Her husband in that movie is Winston Duke, who plays like the in Black Panther plays the the big imposing figure that challenges for to be Black Panther early on in the movie, and he's amazing in this too. Like plays a totally different character. But Lupita Nyong'o, just go watch Us, please. That's what I'm here to say.
Yeah, I didn't realize Winston Duke was in Us. I still need to see that film, and so I'm excited that you're excited about it. Yeah.
Oh my God!
I saw Get Out, and when I read the premise of Us, and knowing that it's a horror film, I get scared, Paul.
I understand.
So I need to.
I understand.
That. Yeah.
Trust me. Trust me. It's a phenomenal movie.
All right. Well, I'm off till Wednesday, so I'm gonna. That will definitely go on my list.
Slide it in between your 57th rewatching of some movie you've seen 57 times.
Okay. Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Yeah, she is quite a talent. I really love her.
Yes.
So fantastic. All right. Well, that brings it back to me for round 2. Okay. And as excited as I was to talk about Robert Downey Jr., it took me a while to let you guys know who was going to be my female actor, because it really came from a position of, ooh, am I worthy? Speaking of this actor, because I hold her in such high regard, and so I am going to talk about Dame Judi Dench. If there's an actor I want to meet, there are many, but if there is an actor that I want to meet, that I would be dumbstruck and totally, like, you guys know I can talk, but I would be rendered speechless for fear of saying something dumb like, you've been in movies.
I liked you in blah.
Yeah. Do you remember when you played Victoria twice? Queen Victoria twice? Yeah, do you know who you are?
Do you know who you are?
Do you remember that time that you were in the James Bond movie and you had the thing? That was awesome.
Exactly. Absolutely. Judi Dench is just that much of a treasure when it comes to her work on screen. And, she has a filmography that goes back as far as 1964 with The Third Secret. But when it pauses for a while. She really picks up steam in 1985 with A Room with a View, but then only does a handful of movies. Standouts include Henry V in 1989. And then she starts her career as M in the Bond movies in 1995 with Goldeneye. And so not only is this is where, between her and Robert Downey Jr., she's one of those actors that people will know from a specific role, which can be a travesty if you don't go and look at the rest of their filmography. So many people are familiar with her from the Bond series, in which, I can't say enough about how well she played M. But there's so much other work that bears talking about. I mean, when she's playing along with Kenneth Branagh in Hamlet in 1996 as Hecuba, I mean, come on. Yeah. This is, it's a whale of a movie to get through, but she's one of those bright spots, and speaking of bright spots, when she can win an Oscar on an 8-minute performance in Shakespeare in Love, this speaks to the talent that this woman has. And to be recognized with a title by the Queen, again, speaks to her impact on not just film, but culture overall. But some of my favorite movies are movies that most often I don't talk about because I don't really have an opportunity to. But If You Can Catch Her in Mrs. Brown, she plays Queen Victoria. Just a beautiful, beautiful film, and she does wonderful work in it. She also reprised her role as Queen Victoria in a movie.
Mrs. Brown 2. No, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Brown 2. Yeah, exactly. That was
Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. Victoria and Abdul. Which I remember as soon as I saw the trailer, I'm like, I'm at the theater for that one. And it's wonderful. Again, she plays these roles with such conviction and with such ease, and another role that I'm glad she was able to do twice was her role as Evelyn Greenslade in the Marigold Hotel series, the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, and then the sequel, which is the second. It's called the Second Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. And I was so afraid of the sequel because the first one was so charming and so beautifully done. And she did it again. The film did it again. It was a rare sequel to a movie that, you know, you didn't want ruined by a sequel, but for me, it wasn't ruined. I enjoyed it. And it was because of the cast. And Judi Dench just absolutely made an impact in that film in ways that I hadn't seen her before. The last thing I'll say about, well, two things. I am very much today, later, after we're done, after doing some research with her work, looking forward to seeing Red Joan. I haven't yet seen it, but it's one of the roles that is spoken of in her more recent work. Red Joan came out in 2018, and so I'm looking forward to checking that out today. But I'll also say, if you ever get a chance to watch the show Staged, you can find it on Hulu. She makes an appearance that really it's played for humor. It's a comedy. It's only 6 episodes, 22 minutes apiece. But when she finally makes her appearance in the story, that was one of the moments where I was like, yeah, I got to talk about her. I love Judi Dench. If I had a t-shirt made, or someone made it for me, Susan, I'm looking at you, that simply said, I love Judi Dench, I'd wear it. I would wear it proudly because she's a wonderful actor, and one that across her filmography, you can see the depth of her talent. And again, I hold her in high regard for the person that she is, because I also follow her on Twitter. Yeah, I love me some Judi Dench. So there you go.
Cool. I want to hit on two that you missed. So one, both of them, I love when she plays the sort of dour woman with reason to hate everybody. And one of those is Chocolat.
Okay.
Guys, have either of you seen that?
I've not.
It's really good. Also stars Johnny Depp. Fantastic. Definitely check out Chocolat. And the other one, being one that I've mentioned many times, is Pride and Prejudice. And she just rocks the house in that movie. And it just, like you mentioned, the thing about her is she just owns the screen every time she pops on, and it's fantastic,
but I get scared,
and it's a joy.
No.
I don't know.
I'm kidding. No, I do need to see that because it's funny. I love period films. I love, you know, and for some reason, Pride and Prejudice just sort of keeps falling off my radar. But I need to check.
Yeah, I've only been bringing it up since we did Emma back in January, so I can see how you would forget about it.
I guess what I mean when I say it falls off my radar, I go like this.
Oh, okay.
So
I got when we did the Netflix roulette, that came up as my first, like I had to respin because that came up for me. I'm like, what? It literally came up, and my first thought was, why couldn't Sergio get this? Come on.
Okay,
I should
write these down. Red Joan and Pride and Prejudice. I should watch between now and Wednesday. So.
Okay.
Now.
All right, Susan, we're going to come to you again for your second installment. Who do you have for us?
So this one's probably a little bit surprising because of my seeming gaps in. So I'm talking about the American treasure, Kevin Costner. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to see your reaction.
I'm gonna make that. If gifs had sound, this was you, Paul.
That was a very honest reaction.
I mean, I imagine so. No, I'm talking about a real American treasure, Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
So when you look at me and you think, oh, you know me, she hasn't seen a lot of movies.
Right.
She hasn't seen a lot of movies, and especially given the way that I've talked about the movies that I like, the type of movies that I like. Gene Hackman is in a lot of movies that I shouldn't like, if that makes any sense.
No.
But when we were looking and trying to decide, I was trying to decide what male actor was going to do. And I can't remember what degrees of separation it got to, but I popped up on his filmography and I was like, oh, I've seen that. I've seen that. I've seen that. I've seen that. I have seen that. Okay. All right. So guess this is how it, so my first, and this is probably one that'll surprise y'all, is that somehow I've seen a whole hell of a lot of Westerns. I'm going to say probably my dad would have them on while he watched the inside of his eyelids, because he wasn't napping. He was just resting his eyes while he watched Western movies. And because if he turned it off, you know that those eyes are fly right open. He was going to get that.
I was watching that.
I was watching that. No, you weren't. You were sleeping. So, so I've actually seen a lot of Western movies, and I think the one that I've seen a lot. I've seen multiple times, The Quick and the Dead with Sharon Stone, and I have a strange love for that movie and hate for that movie. But I was looking through them, and and when you think of Gene Hackman and you think of this guy who always serious, his face is always grave, and it's like, and his biggest thing, you know who it is without even seeing his face. You can hear his voice, his raspy kind of gravelly voice is what it's his trademark. He's known for that. And most of the time he plays pretty serious roles. He plays in these Quick and the Dead and Crimson Tide I've seen, and Wyatt Earp, and he's always, there's always a face on his face. And when you go back and you look at his filmography, he's actually played in a lot of funny films, and he is hilarious. For like the last time we spoke about on The Birdcage. Yeah. And this was the same thing I said. You look at him and you're like, he's going to be really like a serious, because especially you've seen all of these films where he's always serious. And he's serious, but he delivers his lines with this just perfect timing and perfect facial expression to go with it. And you can't help but laugh. And he's been in movies. His first credited role was in 1961 on a TV series, but his first movie role was in 1996. Or pardon me, 1966. My bad.
I was going to say, he did
1966. Can I go take a nap now?
You need a new encyclopedia. So.
I know how to read numbers, okay? It was in 1966, and he's done, and he's another one. Last time we spoke, one of my actors that I spoke with before was about Bruce Willis and how hard of a worker he is in terms of the acting world. Movies are hard, and to make more than one or two in a year is crazy. It's unheard of. So Gene Hackman, if you look at his filmography, he goes in 1967. He's got 8 credited roles. Right. In that movie. And yeah, they might be small roles, and one of them is a TV series, but that's outrageous with everything you have to do. And then if you continue going up, 1968 he's got 5, 1969 he's got 5, and then it's insane to be cranking out movies at this speed. And it's like 1 to 2 movies a year up until the point where you get to in 2004, and it just stops. Yeah. So, he's even said, he's like, I'm done. Maybe. So
has he ever said maybe? I've never heard him say maybe. Like I've always heard it just be like, yeah, he's done.
I was reading up and kind of doing some research. He's tired. He's worked his ass off. But there's when he was talking, the interview that I watched, he said, yeah, I'm basically this is I'm kind of done, but then he looks at the camera like with this twinkle like in his eyes, and you go, okay, maybe not. And of course he's a treasure, and he's won 2 Oscars, and one for, again, with a Western in 1993 was Unforgiven.
Yeah. So good in that.
Yeah, he's incredible. And to see, okay, so, and if you think the names you think of when you think of Westerns, Clint Eastwood is up there. It's going to be one of the first 3 or 4 names that you say.
Sure.
And he's right there. I mean, just amazing. I mean, and I haven't seen it in years, but I can remember like, wow, this is so fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's me kind of gushing about Gene Hackman, and so there you go. And probably, you know, if you want funny, you know, there's also, he's in Young Frankenstein. He's a small role in Young Frankenstein. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah. You know, I'm excited about, you talk, Susan, about how your movie watching experience is not as large as myself and Paul, and I get excited about that, to be totally honest, because with Gene Hackman alone, I could list off for you so many movies that you would love. Gene Hackman is, I mean, I typed GEN and Google automatically brought up Gene Hackman. Like, that's what it auto, you know, this is what we're talking about. 2 movies that I know not many have seen. Well, one that many I don't think have seen that I absolutely love him in is Class Action. Class Action is again, it's that parent-child dynamic that plays out in this story. He's a lawyer who is, you know, he's that, what's the word I'm looking for? He hates big industry, and so he comes after them with a passion, and his daughter is the, you know, counsel for the opposing group. Right. And, you know, say what you will about whether that's really going to happen in real life or not, the bottom line is it's a fantastic story about a father who throws himself into his work because his family life is a shambles, and he's awesome in it. He's absolutely awesome in it. And that's one of my favorite roles, and one of my absolute awesome. And I love Unforgiven. I love every movie you talked about, but oh my goodness, am I a fan of Hoosiers? Hoosiers will, you know, Hoosiers will always be up there, and I'm looking forward to hearing you, you know, watch movies like that. I joke all the time, and this doesn't give anything away because you know the trope. I can watch Hoosiers over and over and over, but not this week, Paul, I promise. And he's so good that you sit there and still every time you wonder, can they win the big game? I mean, that's how great he is in this movie. And so
it has to be a bigger basketball court.
Exactly. I know. Yeah. Are they going to measure it? And so, I'm excited that you brought Gene Hackman. I'm glad you've seen so many because there's so many more. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw a few things out. So first of all, one of the top 5 comic book villains ever, with his turn as Lex Luthor in the early
I was gonna say that's something else.
French Connection is just one of the all-time greatest movies that every person living should have to see. French Connection is so friggin' good. Ignore French Connection too. And just to mention 2 of his other comedy roles, Get Shorty.
Yes.
He is so good in Get Shorty, it's ridiculous. Susan, have you seen Get Shorty?
I'm excited for you.
No.
Bam! All right. So make a note on your little list thing next time we do assignments. Not this one because you've already been assigned something, but next time we're giving you Get Shorty.
I've already been assigned something.
That's an amazing movie. It's a comedy. You'll love it. And then the other one is Royal Tenenbaums, which comes from...
I've seen that.
My favorite director is Wes Anderson. And like the biggest thing that makes me sad about Gene Hackman retiring is that Wes Anderson brings back the same group of actors over and over and over again. And just the idea that I'm not getting to see Gene Hackman and Wes Anderson movies makes me sad. Like just totally sad. Like I just want Gene Hackman and Wes Anderson movies. I just wish he would just do those.
Yeah.
But
you know, and something else, and I've also seen Heartbreakers because it was right around the same time. I've seen, I thought that was hilarious. He did such a great job.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right.
So I'm going to go ahead and segue into my actor on my own by pointing out that Gene Hackman has starred in 101 movies. And if you told me that the reason why Gene Hackman stopped where he did was because the actor I picked had been in 102, I would believe you, because that's just the kind of guy that Gene Hackman strikes me as. He looked at his IMDb and said, I'm at 101. I wonder how many Jimmy Stewart has, and saw Jimmy Stewart has 102. I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to pass Jimmy Stewart. So that's who I'm doing today. And I mentioned at the opening that I had a very specific reason why I did Jimmy Stewart, and it's because I felt like watching some Alfred Hitchcock movies that I'd never seen, and I knew Jimmy Stewart had been in Alfred Hitchcock movies, you know, like it's some of the best Alfred Hitchcock movies ever, and the ones that I hadn't seen, specifically Rope and Vertigo, were, you know, ones that I just constantly hear about as being, you know, some of the best Alfred Hitchcock movies. So I picked Jimmy Stewart. You know, he got his start in 1930. Oh, I thought I wrote it. Yeah, there. 1935, he got his start. He started getting top billing around 37, 38, and did some Westerns and some other things. But he got his first really big movie, as far as, you know, what we would contemporarily consider a big movie, because people know it and recognize it, and it's still, you know, in the lexicon of movies that you should see, was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington in 1939. And I mean, if you care about our country at all, like, you should see Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And if you want to know, you know, my frustrations with everything that's going on today, go watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I mean, it's just, you know, it's just amazing. It's an amazing piece of work. And then the following year he wins, and he was nominated for Best Actor, but then he wins the next year for Philadelphia Story, which is one of the greatest romantic comedies ever made. Like, it is, I watch it today and it's still phenomenal and ridiculous. And I highly recommend everybody to go check out Philadelphia Story. I'm assuming most haven't. It's a classic screwball comedy. His other Oscar nominations were for It's a Wonderful Life in 1947, Harvey in 1951, and Anatomy of a Murder in 1960. The only one of those that I haven't seen is Harvey. I was hoping to catch it this week, but I just didn't. I didn't get around to it because I was prioritizing some of his other things. But Anatomy of a Murder is another one that I watched probably about like a month ago, and it's so good. I mean, it's just, the thing about Jimmy Stewart is that he plays the best everyman in all of his. It's just like, you know, so in Anatomy of a Murder, he's the everyman lawyer. You know, at no point does he ever play the person who you look at and say, this person is exceptional in what they do. But you look at him and say, this person competently does what he needs to do in life. And that's what I need in my life, is just somebody who I can rely on regardless. And that's the kind of guy that he plays, and he does it so well. And he's just so human, you know, that his humanity just drips off of the screen, and I love him for it. And you know, obviously of his 101 movies, I've seen a very small fraction, just because, you know, he was pretty much done making movies by the time I started going to movies. But you know, so I mentioned his collaborations with Alfred Hitchcock, and it was. And honestly, the fact that Alfred Hitchcock put him in 4 of his best movies ever, it tells you all you need to know about Jimmy Stewart, because I trust that Alfred Hitchcock knows what the hell he's doing. So his 4 movies are Rope, Rear Window, The Man Who Knew Too Much, and Vertigo. And, you know, at the very least, Rear Window is considered, you know, if you've watched any number of Hitchcock movies, Rear Window has to be in your top 5. It just has to be, because it is a near perfect film. And you know, Rope is an absolutely hidden treasure that I only kind of started hearing more about more recently. It's just not something that I knew of early on. And I watched it this week and it just absolutely blew my mind. I mean, you know, and honestly, that one is more like a nod to Hitchcock than Jimmy Stewart, because his role is a little different in that one, but so good. I saw A Man Who Knew Too Much for the first time when I was a little kid, and I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I watched it this week, and it's great. And Vertigo was, as I mentioned, one that I hadn't seen before, and I loved it. It's really good. But the other thing that he's known for are his Westerns, and I want to call out the one that I watched this week because I hadn't seen it. And this is actually why I didn't see Harvey, because I wanted to see one of his Westerns, and it was The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in that with John Wayne. And again, this is the type of thing where I watch it, and he plays a lawyer who, you know, and it's just like he's the everyman, and it's fantastic. But like John Wayne in this movie is absurdly good. Like I am, John Wayne is very much kind of like Jimmy Stewart, where, you know, you're getting a good performance every time he shows up. And but I mean, this movie is it really hit me in the gut. This movie, it just it's so good. If you like Westerns at all and haven't seen The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, you absolutely must. It's completely fitting that, like, Jimmy Stewart, one of his last movies was the Duke's absolute last movie, The Shootist, in 1976. So I haven't seen that, but you know, look, Jimmy Stewart, you know, you mentioned American Treasure. Here's another one. Oh yeah. So yeah,
by far. I mean, he's Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
First ballot. I mean,
yeah.
Rear Window is one. I love Hitchcock. But Rear Window, as Violet sits in the background there, is absolutely one of my favorites. Jimmy Stewart, you say you've watched a fraction. I've watched probably a fraction of your fraction, but I absolutely love the work of his that I've seen. I'm familiar from reading. In high school, there was a production we did. I think it was like my sophomore or junior year. We were studying radio plays, and I don't know why I don't remember the details, but I got to read about Jimmy Stewart, and actually I was given the assignment to recite some of his lines and stuff, and that began my love of Jimmy Stewart. So to hear you talk about it just excites me more about, okay, I got to go catch some of these movies you've talked about. So yeah, because I've seen a few of them, but not enough. So yeah.
Susan, have you seen any Jimmy Stewart?
Probably not.
Okay.
Well, and you know,
look for Real Window coming your way soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but it's gonna happen. Not before Get Shorty, but
right. Yeah, no, I mean, this is if you've everyone's gonna say It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, it's played nonstop on loop.
Yeah.
And I remember resisting watching that movie years and years and years ago. And then the first time I watched it, I'm like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
I know. It's funny because I was the same way. Like every Christmas it was on, it was ubiquitous. And I was like, I am not going to watch it because of how ubiquitous it was. And then I finally saw it when I was like well into my 30s. And I'm like, what the hell was I doing? Why did I not watch this sooner?
I choke up every time.
Oh God!
So,
yeah.
So this Christmas, Susan, you will watch It's a Wonderful Life. That's your homework. So.
Okay. Remind me around Christmas time.
Yeah. Well, I won't have to because you'll see it everywhere. So. All right. Well, as always, it's fun to talk about the talented actors that we love. And again, it opens the door for us to know what other films are out there that we haven't seen. And so we are always excited that you watch our show, and we appreciate anything that you have that you want to share with us. So who are your favorite actors? Who do you like to see on screen? Share them with us. Go on over to our Facebook and on Instagram and check us out and talk to us. Let us know what you're watching and who you love. And who knows, maybe we'll talk about those films and those folks in future episodes. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, we thank you very much. We are now 10 episodes strong on YouTube and going full bore. So thank you for supporting us. We appreciate that you've come this way. If you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Please click the notification bell so that you know when our episodes land, and give this episode and other episodes a like, as it really is encouraging to see that. So stay with us, and we appreciate your support. All right, so that brings us to our weekly segments. Paul, what the hell did you watch this week?
Well, so like I mentioned, I was on a Hitchcock binge, so I picked a Hitchcock movie. I literally just typed in the internet like weirdest or strangest Hitchcock movie. I don't remember exactly what the search was, and whatever iteration I tried, I did try multiple iterations. The same answer came back every time, and it was Spellbound. So it stars Ingrid Bergman and Gregory Peck, two classic actors. Imagine that.
Favorite, yeah.
Hitchcock, cast two amazing actors in his movie. And the idea, this movie is definitely like, there's a lot of things about this movie that make you scratch your head for multiple reasons. So Spellbound made in 1948, I'm going to say, is that right? Yeah, no, 45. So Spellbound's 1945. Ingrid Bergman plays a psychoanalyst, kind of new to her job and relatively new to the staff at the university where she's practicing. And there's a new head of staff coming, and by the way, so one of the things that happens is Ingrid Bergman has to fight off like half of the other staff hitting on her, like right up front in the movie. It's just like, wow, like what the hell? Are we really doing this? And like, sure enough, yep, we're really doing this. And she just kind of like laughs it off, like every woman must, especially in 1945. And but then the new head of staff is Gregory Peck, and he's young and hot as opposed to stuffy, wrinkly, and old. And she actually does start to fall for him. So this is my knock on this movie, is that like just the concept of, oh sure, Ingrid Bergman has to fall for the new guy. It's horribly cliche, but the like, because of the psychoanalysis aspect of the movie, so we find out that there's more to this new the new guy than meets the eye, and that's kind of so it's one of the classic like Hitchcock mistaken identity, wrong man type of things that happens through the rest of the movie. And at one point there's a psychoanalysis of Gregory Peck's dreams, and this was really how I ultimately chose this movie, is because the dream sequence is completely inspired by Salvador Dali's art. And just to see Hitchcock take on a living, moving version of like Salvador Dali art was, I love Dali. Like, he's my absolute favorite artist without like there be anybody being in second place. And just to see Hitchcock take that on and be in this dream, this completely surrealistic dream. And there's not a melting clock, but there is a melting wheel, and just funky heads being propped up by not spikes, but it's just things melting, things falling. It's great. And I loved the dream sequence. The movie is 100% worth watching just because of the dream sequence. The ending is a total what the hell, because it ends and there's the twist, and it's like, where did that come from? Like, it's very like the twist on this. Like, I love Hitchcock, and normally like the way he builds up his stuff, it's a crescendo, build up, and this one is just like a build up, and then all of a sudden you're like up here, and it's like, whoa, I literally watched the last 20 minutes and rewound and watched went back and rewatched it, because I felt like I missed something. Like there's just something going on here but sure enough, it's just like, the scratch of the record, like, this is what happened. I was like, whoa, hey, hold on. Where did we go how did we get here? But it's Hitchcock, so it's obviously excellent. There are problems with this one. It's not, I would not put this in my top 10 Hitchcock movies, but the Salvador Dali dream sequence would put in my top 5 Hitchcock scenes ever. Like it's fantastic. So Spellbound, 3.5 tacos, or 3 tacos and guac. I should say. I apologize. I don't know what a half taco is.
A half taco is a leftover.
Okay.
So I love the fact that What the Hell Did I Just Watch can go all the way that far back, into the 1940s. I mean, that's I guess I've never thought about it as there were strange films being made prior to this. And
there were strange films. Cool. Yeah. The dream sequence is, I would imagine that if you're going to see a movie in 1945, just having seen contemporary films, that would have been a really jarring moment in the movie theater. Like I would imagine that, and it's a famous scene. It's an extremely famous scene, like within, film history circles. And I understand why, it was even featured. It's interesting. My son's going through watching all the Simpsons, and literally 2 days after I watched Spellbound, one of the Simpsons episodes had a Treehouse of Horrors dedicated to Hitchcock films. And they included the dream sequence from Spellbound in that. And I was like, oh my God, I just saw this. I know what this is.
That's awesome. I love it.
Season 21, if you're curious and want to see it, season 21 Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors has is features. Yeah. So
awesome. Fantastic. Well, you always bring us cool stuff, and I'm excited to see that list grow. So thank you, Paul, for your contributions to the show through this segment, because
it's available on YouTube. By the way, I didn't say where I watched it. It's available on YouTube. The whole film is available on YouTube. So that's
got it.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. Well, all right. So with that, we will move on to our friend Susan. Susan, the list, how's it going?
Great. Yeah. I watched this movie in preparation for the actor segment because I felt like it was a point that I had missed. So I thought it would be pretty good for me to do. So it wasn't on my list officially.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
But it was
officially, but it was prep. And so, it's from 2002 with Reese Witherspoon. I saw Sweet Home Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Which, I mean, apparently I'm on some kind of like rom-com, slide, if you will.
Sure.
What am I talking? Streak, Florida. Yeah. So this was, it's typical, stereotypical like rom-com. It was really adorable. And again, Reese Witherspoon stole the whole movie. She's amazing and adorable. You start the movie and you find out that she is a fashion designer in New York City, and she gets engaged to her boyfriend, and she's like, oh, I need to go home and take care of something right quick. So she goes back home. She's originally obviously from Alabama, and you find out that she's actually already married to her like high school sweetheart, and they haven't ever officially gotten divorced. And so she's having to go home and get those get the paperwork signed so that it can be finalized and stuff like that. And through all the storytelling and them getting together and all, being in her hometown and seeing all the people that she used to grow up with, it like that wave of nostalgia, I guess. Mm-hmm. And she has a lot of really great interactions with friends and stuff like that. She kind of starts to realize that she misses being there, and she misses the people, and she misses her husband, because in the process, she's trying to get divorced from him. So, and they go through a lot of little zany things that they do. You hear stories about them growing up together, and find out, kind of why she disappeared, why she left and just never came back. And so, of course, at the end, everybody gets happy ending because
of course, it's a romantic comedy.
It's a romantic comedy. She finally gets him. They have a huge fight. He signs the divorce papers and leaves them, and then he's gone. He leaves, and they go. And she gets to get married, and you find out she never signed the divorce papers.
Mm.
And then it's like, okay, yeah, I don't really
You
want to
just
get divorced.
spoiled the ending.
It's from 2002. So the end is that she ends up staying with her current husband.
Yeah,
And
her
not marrying
first
a
husband
new
who
guy.
she moved away from.
Yeah.
Yes. It's adorable. And so really
Yeah, he
cute.
signs the papers just when she started to realize she was still in love with him.
There you go. It's so cute and girly, and I love it so much. And Reese
Yeah, no, it's
Witherspoon
a solid rom-com.
Yeah.
But like, so it is just an absolute formula. Like, just, you know,
Oh, yeah.
you know, beat one, you know where this movie's going.
Yep.
You know
and you
exactly.
know, yeah, before you, and you also, I mean, it follows the formula perfectly. And of course, I mean, you know, she's a bright spot because she's the sunshine, you know, if you will. So I think it's great. Yeah.
I actually have seen this movie, and
Wow.
I didn't want to. I lost a bet, and I had to watch it, and I was
That's like what we're doing.
And when you throw in Patrick Dempsey and Josh Lucas, who are fantastic in this movie as well.
Yes.
It's one of those rare rom-coms. I put it right up there in terms of my own experience, because I'm not a big rom-com fan, but I put it right up there with my love for Serendipity.
Okay.
That movie. Again, I'm a big John Cusack fan, but I enjoyed it. I'm not afraid to say. So,
Susan, do you have HBO Max?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe.
Philadelphia Story is on there. If you're like, if you just want like a good rom-com, Philadelphia Story, please. It's
Okay. I'll check it out.
Check it out
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that was our latest edition of Susan Finally Saw. Susan, thank you so much. And
good entry. I like that one.
Keep at it. I'm always excited to find out what you bring us week to week, just like Paul. So if you are watching us, here on YouTube, and check out our Facebook and Instagram, all that good stuff. I don't know how you don't have movies you can watch. I mean, I know it's hard to decide sometimes. I spend more time scanning than choosing, but listen to these two, and you'll find films that you should check out. And so that's going to lead to me talking about what I want to remind you about, because it's time for this week's Real Time Rewind, and I'm simply going to say the title and leave it at that. A Fish Called Wanda. Okay, I might say more. If you haven't seen A Fish Called Wanda, what is wrong with you? That's all I'm going to say.
Oh no,
It's fantastic.
Ken is trying to kill me. How are you going to catch me, Ken?
Absolutely. Not only is the cast, I'm going to say this at the risk of controversy. Any fan of Monty Python that has not seen A Fish Called Wanda, I need you to fix that. Okay.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
Exactly. But you throw in John Cleese, you throw in Kevin
Kline. Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis.
Thank you. The list goes on. It's a perfect comedy. It is a perfect comedy.
It is.
And so, if you haven't seen it, do it. That's my reminder that you need to catch a Fish Called Wanda. I don't know what else to tell you. It's just that awesome. So,
question for you, Sergio.
Yes.
Thoughts on the unofficial sequel, Fierce Creatures?
Fierce Creatures. I liked it.
Okay.
But the mistake I made with that movie is that I went in thinking of it as I knew it wasn't a direct sequel.
Right.
But I went in expecting the same level of zaniness.
Okay.
But Fish Called Wanda it's different. It's different in its approach to comedy. And so I liked it, but A Fish Called Wanda, listen, I can watch, again, as you know, movies over and over. A Fish Called Wanda is one of those where I'll look at Jen and go, "It's time." And, she knows, if it's either, when I say that, it's either that movie or The Rock that we're talking about. So.
Oh wow! Okay.
A Fish Called Wanda. Golly, I should stop because I'm just going to keep gushing. So that's this week's Real Time Rewind. So, all right. Again, check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Instagram. Make sure you give us a like. on our posts and things of that nature, especially here on YouTube. We thank you for subscribing. If you haven't already, hit that button now. Make sure you click on the notification bell so you know when our episodes land week to week, so that you can keep up with all we're watching. Make sure you comment below. Let us know what you're thinking, and let us know what you're watching. And who knows, we might be talking about those movies in the future. All right, it is time for real quick reviews. And Paul, I'm going to turn this one over to you because I tried, and boy, it was tough.
Did you actually make it through any of it? Or?
I got through the first few minutes, but I thought I need to be in a different frame of mind.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So this movie is called Dick Johnson is Dead. And it's a documentary. I heard about it, and literally just like a one-line snippet. Like I was listening to like another thing, and anyway. And the one-line snippet that I heard was it's a black comedy documentary where a filmmaker imagines different ways in which her father, who is sick, dies. And that's it. Like that was what I had to go off of. And I was like, oh, that's right up my alley. And she actually puts her father in the movie, and so like, I really genuinely thought it was just going to be a movie of, these crazy, wacky scenarios that that you have when you're taking your shower and you think, oh my God, that would be horrible if that happened to me. Just when your mind is wandering, that's what I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought it was going to be entirely that. And I was really ready for that, but it turned into something way bigger and different and quite frankly, painful. I mean, it's a difficult watch, but it is, it's really good. It's so well done. It's so touching. You've mentioned twice or three times now, Sergio, about the classic sort of parent-child movie, and this fits it right in, but on a totally different level. And it's on Netflix. Dick Johnson is Dead. I highly recommend it, but trigger warning, if you're, it turns out that her father has dementia. And so that's the illness. And I didn't know that when I first started the movie. And then as soon as I started, I was like, Sergio, you don't want to watch this. It's really tough. It's really painful. It's really sad, but it takes so many twists, and the ending is one of the most odd scenes I've ever seen in a movie before. I still don't know how I feel about it. I'm not going to spoil. I don't want to spoil it, but the final scene is just absolutely shocking and touching and happy and sad. It's just the last, I don't know if it's even quite 10 minutes, but 5 to 8 minutes of the movie is an absolute roller coaster. And I can't recommend it enough, but also warn you enough. So that's where we are.
Yeah, no. And it's so, again, the subject matter is one that I'm very familiar with through the loss of a parent. And I'm excited to watch it simply because I'm always interested in viewpoints, because I know the struggle, and many do. But your warning comes. I'm glad you do this, Paul, because I know that when I started to read about it, not only was I intrigued by the notion, I read an article in which the director was interviewed about it, and I think it's obviously a cathartic work for her.
Right.
And so 100%. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff I love documentaries. You guys know this. That's exactly what I watch documentaries for. And so, I'm glad that you talked about that this week.
Yeah.
Indeed. So that is our real quick review for this week. And once again, we have come to the end of another fantastic episode of Real to Real Talk. I can't say enough about the work that is done by all of us here, but particularly by those two fantastic folks, Paul Britton and Susan Chisholm. I love you guys. Man. Thank you so much for all you do for the show. All right. So with that, one last time, make sure you click that subscribe button. We're going to keep on with the YouTube train, and we're having fun because darn, we look good on camera. So until the next time we get together to do this, which will be next week, thank you so much. Have a great week. Remember, you're awesome, you're amazing, and the world's a better place because you are in it. We'll see you next time on Real to Real Talk.